Before you begin any project like this, it's always a good idea to make sure you have all the parts. You don't want to get in to the middle of especially a plumbing project and find out you're halfway through the installation and do not have the washers or the proper connectors, especially when you're attaching to plumbing that isn't brand new. That can have its own set of headaches, but that's a different story. So we have this, which attaches to the commode. It's a holder for the handle. So we have this, which attaches to your commode and your water supply line. And there are two washers. It's supposed to have two, and it has two. And we have some plumber's tape. And we have the attachments if we wanted to attach the handle to the wall. In my case, we are not. I'm not even sure this is something I will be using for long. In fact, I got two of these for Christmas. I have two bathrooms. And now it's my job to install these. And then we have the water supply line connector. So far so good. We have the pieces that we need. Another thing I suggest before you start this is make sure you have a container that's large enough to collect some water. They don't tell you this in the instructions that came with it. Something else that works if you don't have a container is if you get a gallon jug or an old gallon of milk. Of course, get rid of the milk, cut the container in half, and that makes a very nice quick container to use for a job like this. It holds water and you can set it to whatever height you want before you cut it in half. This should be fine for our purposes, but that's just a little extra tip for you on finding a cheap container. And anytime I work on a drain, for me personally, anytime I work on a drain or a commode, I don't want to use something that I might use again in another area of the house, like the floors. So I don't like to use buckets. I like to use an easy to find disposable container. And this just happens to be empty. So the next thing we want to do is come over to our water supply line. My house happens to be an older house and the plumbing has a little bit of corrosion on it. And sometimes these valves don't work quite right. So before you really get started on something like this, you want to try it, make sure it turns easily, make sure you don't have any leaks. Another little tip I have for you on this is you might want to do this whenever your local hardware store or a Lowe's or Home Depot is open. So in case you have a problem with your water supply, you can stop what you're doing, get to the store while they're open and buy your replacement parts. Or just call your local professional plumber. Whichever you prefer. Now, another tip I'll give you is in the instructions that came with it, they tell you just to take this off of the tank, but I can tell you from experience, these tanks above the commode hold a good bit of water. So if you just take this off, it's full of water, it's going to come out all over the floor, or there's a good chance it will. Some commodes have different types of mechanisms now, but you could have a mess. It's a good idea to shut the water supply off and then flush it a few times. And I took the lid off. Be careful you don't drop it. They are usually heavy and they will break if you drop it. You can also crack your tile. So just set it out of the way. And I'm also checking to make sure that the water is shut off. Even if I have a small drip, that's okay. But I certainly don't want a lot of water coming out. Okay, it still sounds to me like I have a little water coming through. So even though I have a little water coming out, it's not too much. I'm not going to worry about it too much. So like I said, I don't want to damage the wall because I don't really know if I'll be using this product for long. But since I have the lid off, I will go ahead and put the bidet handle holder on the side of the commode. And when you put it on, make sure it's on the same side of the tank as your water supply, because the hose that it came with really isn't long enough to wrap the whole way around the commode. So while it is long, it certainly isn't long enough to wrap the whole way around. And I imagine you want as much hose as possible when you're trying to use one of these. In this particular case, it looks like there are 2 washers in here. Now check just to make sure this cap comes off, and these untwist just like a regular screw or regular thread, and it comes off. There's already a washer in there, so it looks like they gave us some backup washers. I hope this video helps. Please give it a like, leave a comment if it's helpful to you when you're trying to hook yours up, especially if you've never done something like this. So we have a washer on each connector, so that's good. So we don't have to do that. That's a nice surprise. Or in full disclosure, it's not really a surprise. I had 2 of these, one for each commode, and I installed the other one to make sure everything would work out okay. And the other one was similar. And this connects up to your commode. This side goes to the commode, and this side with the threads will be connected to your water supply line. So we want a washer in this side. There is no washer in here, and it wasn't on the other one. It won't fit in here. And again, there are 2 of these, and it doesn't call for more than one. So we'll put one in here, just like that. Okay, so let's connect this to the tank. Another thing I found is you don't want to use a wrench with this. If you do and you ever tighten it, sometimes these gaskets will get knocked loose. There, we'll get most of the water in there. You also want to make sure you grab a couple of towels. I should have mentioned that too. Paper towels will do. So take the water supply line off. I still have water coming out, as you can see. So now I'm in a race before that fills up. So I can thread this onto the bottom. And tighten it by hand as far as you can. And you want to make sure you have the water flow control where you can get it. And I still have enough room there to be able to reach that. Okay, the next thing I want to do is reattach the water supply line. There was also already a rubber gasket on the inside of this water supply line. And I have water coming out there, so I hit the shut off now. So that appears to be working just fine. I have the water supply line nice and tight. Now I want to take the smaller end. You have 2 ends. One goes to the sprayer, and the one with the nut on it that goes to the water supply. So we'll connect that up right there. Just tighten that down. I don't want to stress too much that you want to make sure you do these by hand. Your life will go much smoother if you do. And then we take the sprayer and connect it on this one. Just like that. And after that's connected, go ahead and put it on the handle. Now, as you saw with the water supply, if you still have a small drip and you're not comfortable doing it because it's still dripping, you can't shut off the house or the apartment water supply. I happen to have the dishwasher running, so I didn't want to do that. Before you go to the next phase and turn the water back on, I like to dry up the floor. As you can see, I do have some water down here. Not too much, but I did get some. Okay, I got most of that water up. Now I'll turn the water supply back on. Keep our fingers crossed. I turn it on slowly in case I have water that starts to shoot out anywhere. I won't have an extra big mess. And that's another reason I like to dry things up before I turn it back on. It helps me spot water if it happens to come out. Little tip on these older fixtures, I don't like to open them all the way up because the gaskets inside can get brittle over time. And if you take it all the way back, sometimes you'll have more issues. If If you open it up about half to 3/4 of the way, especially on a commode, it should be sufficient to refill the commode in a reasonable amount of time. But it can also save you some headaches by having it's great that you got it connected and are ready to go, but then your old valve starts leaking. It's never a fun time. Little bonus tip. Okay, everything looks like I'm not seeing any big leaks, so now I'll dry up. The piece is just a little bit better. Since I did have some water coming out, I'm seeing some shiny spots. So before I step away, I definitely want to make sure that everything's okay. Okay, now, since everything looked good, I'm feeding water. I turned the supply back on to get some water to the sprayer. Give the little sprayer a shot. Got some power on that thing. The nice thing about this is you can adjust it. You have a more gentle stream when you press the handle. There, it's shut off. You can put it back onto the side of the commode. I adjusted it a little bit there, but there you go. Now it's installed. So that's how you install it. And again, if you found that useful, make sure you subscribe and like this video. It helps my channel out. And if you didn't watch the review of this, you can go check that out now. Or if you watch this and decide you can handle hooking one up, or if you watch the installation of this and you decide you want one, I'll put a link where you can purchase one, and I'll earn a small commission at no additional cost to you. And I appreciate it. Thanks for watching.